The rain fell in sheets, each drop an icy needle against my skin. I hunched deeper into my thin jacket, the fabric already soaked through, clinging to my trembling frame. The bus stop offered minimal shelter, its plastic roof leaking in 3 different places. One drip had found the perfect path down my collar, a cold trail snaking along my spine. I checked my phone again. Dead. Of course it was dead. Everything in my life seemed to run out of power at exactly the wrong moment. 2 hours. I'd been waiting for 2 hours, my shoes squelching with rainwater, mascara surely streaming down my cheeks in black rivulets. Not that anyone would notice. People hurried past, umbrellas tilted against the wind, eyes averted from the soaking wet woman whose life was falling apart. My fingers traced the eviction notice in my pocket, the paper now soft and pulpy from the rain. 3 months behind on rent. My waitressing job hadn't covered it, and after today, after dropping and shattering an entire tray of drinks on the restaurant owner's potential investors, I didn't even have that anymore. "You're a walking disaster, Ellie," I whispered to myself. The words immediately swallowed by a rumble of thunder, when the sleek black limousine slowed to a stop directly in front of me. I barely registered it. Vehicles like that didn't stop for people like me. It was probably just waiting for the light to change, though I couldn't recall if there even was a traffic light nearby. The rear window slid down with an almost imperceptible hum. I caught a glimpse of movement inside. The orange glow of what might have been a cigar, the glint of a heavy gold watch. Then a voice emerged from the shadows, low and smooth as aged whiskey. "Get in." 2 words. Just 2 simple words that somehow carried the weight of a command, not a request. I blinked rainwater from my eyes, certain I'd misheard. "Excuse me. You're soaking wet. It's pouring." "Get in the car, Miss Sullivan." My heart stuttered. He knew my name. The stranger in the luxury vehicle knew my name. I stepped back instinctively, my heel catching on the curb. I would have fallen if not for the lightning-fast reflection of the man who had silently appeared beside me. A tall figure in a dark suit who now steadied me with a grip that was firm, but not painful. "Mr. Castellano doesn't like to repeat himself," the man said quietly, nodding toward the open car door. Castellano. The name hit me like a physical blow. Everyone in this city knew that name, whispered it with a mixture of fear and awe. Vincent Castellano, the man whose businesses, legal and otherwise, seemed to touch every corner of our decaying industrial town. "There must be some mistake," I stammered, acutely aware of how pathetic I looked, how vulnerable I was. "I don't know Mr. Castellano." A soft, almost imperceptible laugh came from inside the limo. "But I know you, Eleanor Sullivan, 26 years old, graduated with honors in accounting before your father's medical bills bankrupted your family. Currently, or should I say formerly, employed at Bellini's on 5th Street, living in an apartment on Westmore Avenue that you can no longer afford." My blood turned to ice. How could he possibly know all that? "Why would someone like you know anything about me?" I managed to ask, my voice barely audible above the rain. The window lowered further, and I saw him clearly for the first time. He was younger than I'd expected, perhaps in his early 30s, dark hair, immaculately styled despite the humidity, a face that could have belonged on a Renaissance sculpture, all sharp angles and perfect symmetry. But it was his eyes that held me frozen in place, dark as burnished mahogany, watching me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. "Because you're carrying something that belongs to me," he said simply. I instinctively clutched my bag tighter, mind racing through its meager contents. Bus pass, broken phone, wallet with exactly $17 inside, the torn remnants of a resume, a half-eaten granola bar. "I don't have anything of value," I said. Vincent Castellano's lips curved into something between a smile and a smirk. "Value is subjective, Miss Sullivan." His gaze traveled slowly down to my midsection, lingering there with such deliberate focus that I felt my breath catch. "Some things are beyond price." The bodyguard's hand remained on my elbow, neither pulling nor pushing, just a steady presence reminding me that I wasn't being given a genuine choice. Another crack of lightning split the sky, followed immediately by a deafening boom of thunder. The storm was directly overhead now. "I have a proposition that will solve your immediate financial concerns," Castellano continued, his voice somehow both gentle and unyielding. "All I ask is 10 minutes of your time. You can sit in a dry, warm car and listen. Or you can continue standing in the rain waiting for a bus that, I assure you, isn't coming. Not tonight." As if to emphasize his point, the rain intensified, now coming down in a near-blinding torrent. I thought of my empty apartment with its leaking ceiling and the landlord's promise to change the locks by morning. I thought of my phone, unable to call the one friend who might have offered me a couch for the night. I thought of the $17 that wouldn't even buy me a cheap motel room. I stepped toward the limo. The interior was warm and smelled of expensive leather and something woodsy and masculine. Sandalwood, perhaps. The seats were soft, butter-colored leather, and subtle lighting gave the space a golden glow that contrasted sharply with the gray storm outside. As the door closed behind me with a solid thunk, the sounds of the storm faded to a distant patter. Vincent Castellano sat across from me, one leg crossed casually over the other. Up close, I could see the perfect cut of his charcoal suit, the crisp white of his shirt, the blood-red tie that seemed to shimmer in the low light. He studied me with an expression I couldn't quite decipher, something between curiosity and satisfaction, like a collector who'd just acquired a rare piece. "You're even more beautiful up close," he said, the words casual, as if commenting on the weather. I became acutely aware of my bedraggled appearance, soaking wet hair plastered to my face, makeup running, clothes clinging to my body in the most unflattering way possible. "Is this some kind of joke?" I asked, hating how small my voice sounded. "I never joke about beauty," he replied, reaching into a hidden compartment and producing a soft, clearly expensive blanket, which he handed to me. "Or about business. And this, Eleanor, is both." I took the blanket but didn't unfold it, holding it like a shield between us. "What exactly do you want from me, Mr. Castellano?" "First, I want you to call me Vincent." He leaned forward slightly. "Second, I want you to tell me about your relationship with Michael Pearson." The name hit me like a physical blow. Michael, my ex-boyfriend. The man who'd promised me the world and left me with nothing but debt and heartache 4 months ago. "I don't have a relationship with Michael," I said carefully. "Not anymore." Vincent's eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly. "And yet, you're carrying his child." My hand instinctively went to my stomach, still flat, with only the slightest curve that nobody would notice unless they were looking for it. The secret I'd been carrying alone for the past 8 weeks, the reason I'd been working double shifts at the restaurant, desperate to save enough to support a baby I hadn't planned for. "How could you possibly know that?" I whispered, fear creeping up my spine. "Michael works for me," Vincent said, his voice hardening slightly. "Or rather, he did, until he embezzled a significant amount of money from one of my businesses and disappeared." The car began moving, sliding silently through the rain-slicked streets. I should have been frightened by this, being driven away by a man known to be dangerous, a man connected to my ex in ways I'd never imagined, but somehow I felt oddly calm. Perhaps I was in shock. Perhaps I was simply too exhausted to feel fear anymore. "I had nothing to do with whatever Michael did," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "He left me 4 months ago. I haven't heard from him since." Vincent studied me for a long moment, his dark eyes seeming to look straight through me, searching for lies. "I believe you," he finally said, "which is fortunate for you. I'm not known for my forgiveness when I'm betrayed." The way he said it sent a shiver down my spine. Not a threat, but a simple statement of fact. "What does any of this have to do with me?" I asked, though a sinking feeling told me I already knew. "Michael took something from me," Vincent said, his gaze dropping once again to my midsection. "And left something of himself with you. I find that interesting." The car slowed and turned, the motion smooth as silk. Through the tinted windows I caught glimpses of an upscale neighborhood, manicured hedges, elegant facades, wrought iron gates. "Where are you taking me?" I asked, suddenly aware that we'd been driving for several minutes. "Somewhere safe," Vincent replied. "Somewhere dry." Somewhere you can rest while we continue our conversation. I never agreed to go anywhere with you, I protested weakly. Vincent's lips curved in that not-quite smile again. And yet, here you are. He gestured around the luxurious interior of the limo. You had a choice at the bus stop, Eleanor. You chose this. Had I? With no money, no job, no home to return to. Had there really been a choice at all? The limo slowed to a stop, and through the window I saw massive iron gates swinging open. Beyond them, a sweeping driveway led to what could only be described as a mansion, stone and glass, and warm lights glowing from within. Welcome to my home, Vincent said, watching me closely as the car proceeded through the gates. They closed behind us with an ominous clang that seemed to echo finality. The driver opened the door, holding an umbrella over Vincent as he stepped out. Then he came around to my side, extending the same courtesy. The rain had lessened to a gentle patter, but the umbrella was a welcome shield. Vincent stood waiting for me, silhouetted against the warm lights of the house, tall and imposing and undeniably handsome. He extended his hand to me. Come, Eleanor. We have much to discuss about your future. His eyes traveled once more to my stomach, and his expression changed to something possessive, something hungry. About both your futures, I hesitated for just a moment before placing my trembling hand in his. His fingers closed around mine, warm and strong, and I felt something electric pass between us. A current of something I couldn't name, but recognized instinctively as dangerous. As he led me up the steps to his home, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking into a beautiful cage, one with gilded bars and luxurious furnishings, but a cage nonetheless. And somewhere in the back of my mind, a voice whispered that once I stepped through that door, nothing in my life would ever be the same again. I stepped through anyway. The foyer of Vincent Castellano's mansion swallowed me whole. Soaring ceilings stretched upward, crowned by a crystal chandelier that scattered light like diamond rain. Marble floors gleamed beneath my feet, my worn sneakers leaving damp impressions that quickly faded. The space smelled of money, that indefinable scent of luxury, of things well-tended and pristine. Julian, Vincent called, his voice echoing slightly in the vast space. The bodyguard who had been at the bus stop materialized from somewhere, his face impassive. Show Miss Sullivan to the blue guest suite. Have Maria bring up some dry clothes and something warm to drink. Julian nodded once, then looked at me expectantly. I glanced back at Vincent, who was already shrugging off his suit jacket, handing it to another staff member who had appeared silently. You need to get warm and dry, Vincent said, his tone brooking no argument. We'll continue our discussion over dinner. 1 hour. It wasn't a suggestion. I followed Julian up a sweeping staircase, my legs heavy with exhaustion. My mind raced with questions, with fears, with the surreal knowledge that I was in Vincent Castellano's home, a man known throughout the city as both a ruthless businessman and something far more dangerous. The blue guest suite turned out to be larger than my entire apartment. The walls were painted a soft dove gray, with accents of deep navy and silver. A massive 4-poster bed dominated the room, draped in what looked like silk. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the storm still raging outside, but in here, everything was calm, controlled. The bathroom is through there, Julian said, indicating a door. Maria will be up shortly with clothes and tea. He left without another word, closing the door behind him. I didn't hear a lock turn, but I didn't try the handle either. Something told me I wouldn't get far if I tried to leave. The bathroom was a marvel of marble and glass, with a shower big enough for 4 people and a soaking tub that looked like it belonged in a spa. I stood there, dripping onto the heated floor tiles, staring at my reflection in the enormous mirror. I looked even worse than I'd imagined. Mascara streaked down my cheeks, hair a tangled mess, skin pale with exhaustion and cold. My hand drifted to my stomach, to the tiny life growing inside me. Michael's child. The child of a thief who had betrayed not just me, but apparently Vincent Castellano as well. What have you gotten us into? I whispered to my barely there bump. A soft knock at the door pulled me from my thoughts. A middle-aged woman with silver-streaked black hair and kind eyes entered, carrying a stack of folded clothes and a tray with a steaming mug. Miss Sullivan, I'm Maria. Mr. Castellano asked me to bring these for you. She set the clothes on the bed and the tray on a nearby table. The shower has everything you need. Take your time. I'll return in 45 minutes to show you to dinner." She left before I could thank her. I sipped the tea, a rich blend with honey and something citrusy, and felt warmth spread through me for the first time in hours. The clothes were simple, but clearly expensive. Soft black leggings, a loose cashmere sweater in deep blue, and even underwear with the tags still on. I tried not to think about Vincent selecting these items, about how he somehow knew my size. The hot shower was heaven. I stood under the spray until my skin flushed pink, washing away the day's grime and at least some of its stress. The shampoo smelled of jasmine and vanilla, an oddly feminine choice for a house I'd expected to be aggressively masculine. Dressed in the clean clothes, hair damp but combed, I looked almost human again. The leggings fit perfectly, the sweater enveloping me in softness. I still didn't know what Vincent wanted from me, beyond the obvious connection to Michael, but at least I would face him with some dignity restored. Maria returned exactly when she promised, leading me down a different staircase and through a series of corridors. The house was a labyrinth of luxury, artwork that looked museum-worthy, furniture that probably cost more than I'd make in years if I ever found another job. She opened double doors to reveal a dining room that, while smaller than I expected, was still imposing. A table that could seat 12 was set for 2 at one end. Vincent stood by a fireplace, swirling amber liquid in a crystal glass. He'd changed into dark slacks and a crisp white shirt, open at the collar. The firelight caught the planes of his face. The sharp angles softened slightly in the golden glow. He turned as we entered, his eyes traveling over me with an intensity that made heat rise to my cheeks. "Much better," he said, setting his glass down. "Thank you, Maria. We'll serve ourselves." Maria nodded and withdrew, closing the doors behind her. "You look rested," Vincent said, pulling out a chair for me. "The clothes fit well." "Thank you," I said stiffly, sitting down, though I'm still not clear on why I'm here. Vincent took his seat at the head of the table, close enough that I could smell his cologne, something woodsy with hints of spice. Directness. I appreciate that. He served us both from covered dishes that sat warming on the table, some kind of pasta with seafood, asparagus, crusty bread. "Eat," he said, noticing my hesitation. "The baby needs nourishment." The casual reference to my pregnancy, this secret I'd been guarding so carefully, sent a jolt through me. "How did you know?" I asked, picking up my fork, but not yet eating. "About the baby. I'm barely showing." Vincent took a sip of his wine. I noticed water had been poured for me. "I make it my business to know everything about people who are connected to me." "I'm not connected to you," I countered. His eyes met mine, dark and unreadable. "You're carrying the child of a man who stole from me. That creates a connection." I finally took a bite of the pasta. It was delicious, rich with garlic and herbs, the seafood perfectly cooked. I realized suddenly how hungry I was, and had to force myself to eat slowly. "So, what exactly do you want from me?" I asked after several bites. "Information, to start," Vincent said. "When did you last see Michael?" I set down my fork. 4 months ago. He said he was going on a business trip to Chicago. He never came back. Left a note saying he needed space, that it wasn't working out. I laughed bitterly. Cliché, right? I tried calling, texting, nothing. His phone was disconnected a week later. Vincent watched me carefully, as if measuring the truth in my words. "And when did you discover you were pregnant?" 8 weeks ago. I unconsciously touched my stomach again. I'd been feeling sick. Thought it was stress from him leaving. The doctor confirmed it. "Did you tell him?" I shook my head. How could I? He was gone. I took a sip of water, my throat suddenly dry. I wouldn't have told him anyway, not after how he left. Something flickered in Vincent's eyes. Approval, perhaps. Michael embezzled just over $2 million from one of my investment firms. Transferred it through a series of offshore accounts. Disappeared. His voice remained calm, conversational, as if discussing the weather rather than theft and betrayal. He was quite clever about it. I almost admire the planning. Almost. The room suddenly felt colder. "I had no idea," I whispered. "I thought he worked for an accounting firm downtown." "He did. One of my accounting firms." Vincent broke a piece of bread, butter it methodically. "When someone betrays me, Eleanor, I don't stop until I find them. Michael knows this. Which is why I find it curious that the one trace he left behind leads to you." "What do you mean?" The last thing Michael did before disappearing was set up a trust fund, a small one by my standards, $50,000. The beneficiary? His eyes dropped to my midsection. Any child born to Eleanor Sullivan within 1 year of the trust's creation. My fork clattered against the plate. That's impossible. He left me. Why would he? Perhaps he knew about the pregnancy before you did, Vincent suggested. Or perhaps he suspected. Either way, he made provisions for his child. Not for you, notably. Just the child. My mind reeled. Michael had left money for a baby he'd never even acknowledged? It made no sense. Unless... You think he left the money as some kind of message? I said slowly. Something to lead you to me. Vincent's lips curved in that not-quite smile. Very perceptive, Eleanor. Yes, that's exactly what I think. The question is... Why? What does Michael believe you have that would be of interest to me? Nothing, I insisted. I have nothing of value. You've seen where I live, how I live. If I had anything worth millions, don't you think I'd have used it by now? Vincent studied me for a long moment. Perhaps it's not something you know you have. He set down his wineglass. Or perhaps it's not something. Perhaps it's someone. His gaze lingered on my stomach, and I felt a chill run through me. The baby? I whispered. What could you possibly want with my unborn child? DNA, Vincent said simply. Michael Pearson isn't who you think he is. His real name is Michael Castellano, my younger half-brother. The room seemed to tilt around me. Michael, my Michael, was Vincent Castellano's brother? It seemed impossible, absurd. And yet looking at Vincent now, I could see subtle similarities I'd missed before. The shape of the jaw, the set of the shoulders. That's not possible, I said, my voice faint. He would have told me. Would he? Vincent's tone was almost gentle. The same man who abandoned you without explanation? Who stole millions and vanished? That man you're certain would have shared his family connections with you? Put that way. It did sound naive. I pushed my plate away, appetite gone. If what you're saying is true, I said carefully, then my baby is your niece or nephew. Yes. Something possessive flashed in Vincent's eyes. A Castellano. And that's why I'm here? Because of the baby's bloodline? Vincent leaned back in his chair, regarding me thoughtfully. Family is everything to me, Eleanor. The only thing, some would say. Michael knows this. By ensuring I would find out about your child, he's placed you under my protection. I don't need your protection, I said automatically, though the words rang hollow even to my own ears. Homeless, jobless, pregnant. I'd never been more in need of protection in my life. Don't you? Vincent asked softly. You were evicted today. Fired. You have $17 to your name, no family to turn to since your father's death. No close friends in the city. Where exactly were you planning to go when you left that bus stop? Each word was like a knife, precise and cutting. He'd laid out my desperate situation with brutal efficiency. I would have figured something out, I said, hating how weak it sounded. I'm offering you a solution, Vincent said. Stay here, where it's safe. Where you'll have everything you need for a healthy pregnancy. Where your child, a Castellano, will be protected. And in return? I asked, because there was always a price. Michael had taught me that, if nothing else. Vincent's eyes darkened. In return, you help me find my brother. I told you. I don't know where he is. Not now, Vincent agreed. But he set up that trust fund for a reason. He wanted me to find you, to protect his child, which means he'll be watching. He'll want to know about his baby. Eventually, he'll make contact. The implication was clear. I was to be the bait in Vincent's trap. And if I refuse? I asked. Vincent spread his hands in a gesture that managed to encompass the room, the house, his entire world. You're free to leave. I'll have my driver take you wherever you wish to go. But the money Michael left, that stays with me until the child is born. And my protection? His eyes hardened slightly. That ends the moment you walk out the door. It wasn't really a choice at all. Stay and be comfortable, safe, protected, but used as a lure for a man who had clearly gotten himself into dangerous waters. Or leave, return to nothing, struggle through a pregnancy alone and broke. How long? I asked. Until the baby is born. Until Michael is found. Whichever comes first. I thought of the child growing inside me. Whatever Michael had done, this baby deserved a chance, deserved better than a mother scrambling for shelter and food. I'll stay, I said finally, but I want something in writing about the trust fund. Regardless of whether you find Michael, that money belongs to my child. Vincent looked surprised, then pleased, as if I'd passed some sort of test. Of course. I'll have my lawyer draw up the papers tomorrow. He stood, coming around to pull out my chair. You've had a long day. We can discuss the details further tomorrow. He walked me back to the staircase, his hand resting lightly at the small of my back. The touch was proprietary, as if I were already part of his household, his responsibility, his possession. At the bottom of the stairs, he stopped, turning me gently to face him. One more thing, Eleanor. While you're under my roof, under my protection, you are, for all intents and purposes, mine. Do you understand what that means? His dark eyes bore into mine, intense and unwavering. I didn't understand, not fully, but something in his gaze made my heart race, made heat pool low in my belly. I think so, I whispered. His hand came up to brush a strand of hair from my face, the touch feather-light but somehow burning. No, he said softly. You don't. Not yet. He stepped back. But you will. His expression unreadable once more. Good night, Eleanor. Sleep well. As I climbed the stairs to my luxurious prison, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just made a deal with the devil himself. A devastatingly handsome devil with dark eyes that promised both protection and possession in equal measure. And somewhere deep inside, in a place I wasn't ready to acknowledge, I wasn't entirely sure I wanted to be saved. Morning came with disorienting brightness. For a moment, I couldn't place where I was. The bed was too soft, the sheets too silky against my skin, the room too quiet. Then yesterday's events crashed back into my consciousness. The rain, the eviction, the black limousine. Vincent Castellano. I sat up slowly, my hand instinctively moving to my stomach. Morning sickness had been mercifully light so far, more of a persistent queasiness than actual vomiting. Today, though, my stomach rolled with anxiety more than pregnancy hormones. I'd agreed to stay in the home of a man who, by all accounts, was dangerous. A man whose brother had betrayed both of us and disappeared. I was meant to be bait in a trap, a comfortable, well-kept prisoner in this gilded cage. Sunlight streamed through windows where the curtains had been drawn back, revealing a view of immaculately landscaped grounds stretching to a line of trees in the distance. The storm had passed, leaving everything washed clean and glistening. A soft knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. Maria entered, carrying a tray with tea and toast. "Good morning, Miss Sullivan," she said, setting the tray on a small table by the windows. "Mr. Castellano thought you might prefer a light breakfast in your room this morning." "Thank you," I said, wrapping the plush robe I'd found in the bathroom around me. "What time is it?" "Just after 9, Maria replied. "Mr. Castellano asked me to tell you that his tailor will be arriving at 11 to take measurements for a proper wardrobe. After that, he'd like to meet with you in his study." A proper wardrobe? I opened my mouth to protest, then closed it again. I had exactly one set of clothes to my name, the ones I'd been wearing yesterday, now presumably being laundered. "I can't accept an entire wardrobe from him," I said finally. Maria's expression remained neutral, but her eyes held a hint of sympathy. "Mr. Castellano is very particular about appearances. While you are a guest in his home, he will insist on providing appropriate attire." Guest. Such a polite word for what I was. "Is there anything else you need?" Maria asked. I hesitated. "Actually, my apartment. All my things will be thrown out if I don't get them." Not that I had much. Some clothes, a few books, my father's watch, a small box of photos, but they were all I had left. "I believe Mr. Castellano has already taken care of that," Maria said. "Julian went this morning with a team. Your belongings should be delivered later today." Of course he had. Vincent Castellano was nothing if not thorough. "Thank you, Maria," I said, oddly touched that he'd thought of my meager possessions. After she left, I ate the toast and drank the tea, both surprisingly appetizing to my usually queasy stomach. I showered again, simply because I could, reveling in the hot water and expensive products. At precisely 11, Maria returned with a tiny, bird-like woman introduced as Madame Perrine, Vincent's personal tailor. The next hour was a flurry of measurements and fabric swatches and questions about my preferences. I tried to insist on practical, modest clothing, but Madame Perrine simply smiled and continued making notes in a leather-bound book. Mr. Castellano has given specific instructions, was all she would say when I protested that I didn't need evening wear or anything made of silk. By the time she left, I felt exhausted, simply from standing still and lifting my arms on command. Maria led me downstairs, through a maze of hallways to a heavy wooden door. She knocked once, then opened it without waiting for a response. Vincent's study was exactly what I'd expected. Masculine and imposing, with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a massive desk, and leather chairs that probably cost more than a year's rent at my old apartment. The man himself stood by the window, phone to his ear, his back to us. He wore another impeccable suit, this one navy blue, the fabric catching the light as he moved. Yes. Today, he was saying, his voice calm but with an undercurrent of steel. I don't care what it takes, get it done. He ended the call, turning to face us. His eyes immediately found mine, something flickering in their depths, before his expression settled into polite interest. Eleanor, I hope you slept well. Yes, thank you, I said, unsure how to navigate this strange new dynamic between us. Vincent nodded to Maria, who silently withdrew, closing the door behind her. Please sit, he said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. I sat, smoothing the borrowed leggings over my knees. He remained standing for a moment longer, studying me with that same intense focus I'd noticed yesterday. Then he moved to his chair, the leather creaking softly as he sat. Your belongings will be delivered this afternoon, he said, though I've arranged for an entirely new wardrobe as well. That's very generous, I said carefully, but unnecessary. I can't accept. It's not generosity, Eleanor, he interrupted, his tone gentle but firm. It's practicality. Your child is a Castellano. While under my protection, you will both have everything you need and more. This isn't negotiable. My child. A Castellano. The words still felt surreal. Did you know? I asked suddenly. About Michael and me, before all this happened? Vincent leaned back in his chair. I keep tabs on my brother. I knew he was seeing someone seriously. I didn't look into the details because, frankly, his love life wasn't my concern. His mouth tightened slightly, until he stole from me and disappeared, leaving you behind like breadcrumbs for me to follow. I wasn't left behind deliberately, I said, a flash of the old hurt resurfacing. He just left. Period. And yet he set up that trust fund, Vincent countered. $50,000, specifically for any child you might bear within a year of his disappearance. Michael doesn't do anything without a reason, Eleanor. He knew I would eventually trace that money back to you. I rubbed my temples, trying to make sense of it all. So what happens now? I just stay here until the baby comes, until you find Michael? For now, yes. Vincent opened a drawer and withdrew a folder, sliding it across the desk to me. These are the papers for the trust fund. My lawyers have ensured that regardless of what happens with Michael, this money goes directly to your child upon birth. I opened the folder, scanning the legal documents inside. The language was dense, but the intent was clear. $50,000, held in trust, to be released upon the birth of my child. Thank you for this, I said, surprised by the straightforward nature of the agreement. Vincent waved a hand dismissively. It's Michael's money, not mine. I'm simply ensuring it goes where he intended. He studied me for a moment. I've also taken the liberty of arranging for the best obstetrical care. Doctor, Reeves will see you here tomorrow for your first appointment. Here? I asked, surprised. The doctor is coming here? All your medical care will be provided in-house, Vincent said, as if this were perfectly normal. It's safer that way. A chill ran through me. Safer from what exactly? Do you think I'm in danger? Vincent's expression darkened. Michael stole a significant amount of money from people who don't forgive such things easily. Until I know exactly what game he's playing, yes, I believe there's potential danger. To me? Or to the baby? Both. His gaze dropped to my stomach. That child is a Castellano, Eleanor. In my world, bloodlines matter. Family matters. There are those who would use you to get to Michael, or to get to me. I swallowed hard. So, I'm a prisoner here. A guest under protection, Vincent corrected, though the distinction felt academic. You'll have full run of the house and grounds. Security will accompany you if you wish to go elsewhere. Your every need will be met. But yes, for now, this is where you stay. And if Michael never makes contact? I asked. What then? Something shifted in Vincent's eyes. A darkening, a possessiveness that made my breath catch. Then you and the child remain under my protection indefinitely. The word hung between us. Indefinitely. A life sentence in a luxury prison, bound to Vincent Castellano by blood not my own, but that of the child I carried. I need some time, I said, feeling suddenly overwhelmed. To process all this. Vincent nodded. Of course. Maria will show you the grounds. I've had the East Garden prepared for you. It gets the morning sun, which I'm told is beneficial for expectant mothers. He stood, indicating our meeting was over. We'll dine together at 7. Again, not a question or invitation, simply a statement of how things would be. Maria was waiting outside the study. She led me through the house to glass doors opening onto a stone terrace. Beyond stretched gardens that would have put public botanical displays to shame. Perfectly manicured lawns, flowering shrubs, stone pathways winding between carefully tended beds. The East Garden is this way, Maria said, leading me down a gravel path. We rounded a corner and I gasped softly. A small enclosed garden lay before us, surrounded by ivy-covered walls. A fountain bubbled at its center, the sound soothing and melodic. Stone benches were placed strategically in patches of dappled sunlight. Flowering vines climbed trellises, their sweet scent perfuming the air. Mr. Castellano had this renovated for you just this morning, Maria said. The gardeners have been working since dawn. In less than 24 hours, Vincent Castellano had cleared my apartment, arranged for a new wardrobe, secured a trust fund for my unborn child, scheduled medical care, and renovated a garden, all for a woman he'd only just met. All because I carried his brother's child. It's beautiful, I admitted, sitting on one of the benches. I'll leave you to rest, Maria said. There's a bell by the gate if you need anything. Alone in the garden, I closed my eyes, letting the sun warm my face. The breeze carried the scent of roses and something citrusy, lemon trees perhaps. Birds chirped in the nearby trees. It was peaceful, perfect, and utterly surreal. I must have dozed off, lulled by the fountain and sunshine, because I startled awake at the sound of footsteps on gravel. Opening my eyes, I found Vincent standing a few feet away, watching me with an expression I couldn't read. I didn't mean to disturb you, he said, though something told me that wasn't entirely true. He seemed to enjoy catching me off guard, observing my unguarded reactions. I sat up straighter. It's fine. I didn't realize I'd fallen asleep. Pregnancy often causes fatigue, he said, coming to sit beside me on the bench. Not too close, but close enough that I caught the now familiar scent of his cologne. My mother used to nap in the gardens when she was carrying Michael. There was something almost wistful in his tone. I found myself curious despite my wariness. Your mother, is she? She died when I was 20, Vincent said, his eyes on the fountain. Cancer. My father followed 3 years later. I'm sorry, I said, the words inadequate but sincere. I lost my father last year. My mother's been gone since I was a child. Vincent nodded. I know. Medical bills from your father's heart condition led to your financial difficulties. Of course he knew. Vincent Castellano probably knew everything about me. My credit score, my medical history, my favorite color. Did you and Michael grow up together? I asked, realizing how little I actually knew about the man I'd been seeing for nearly a year, the man whose child I carried. No, Vincent said, his jaw tightening slightly. Different mothers. Michael was raised primarily in Europe with his mother, after my father's relationship with her ended. He only came to live with us permanently when he was 16. That explained the slight accent I'd sometimes noticed in Michael's speech when he was tired or angry. European, not quite placeable. One more thing he'd never explained. He never mentioned any of this, I said, more to myself than to Vincent. Michael has always been selective about the truths he shares, Vincent replied, a hint of bitterness coloring his words. Even as a boy, he would tell elaborate stories, half-truths mixed with outright fabrications. I thought about how little Michael had shared about his past, always deflecting questions with charming evasions, or turning the conversation back to me. I'd found it flattering at the time, his interest in my life, my thoughts, my dreams. Now I recognized it for the manipulation it was. He told me he grew up in Chicago, I said, that his parents owned a small grocery store. Vincent gave a short, humorless laugh. Creative. Our father owned a chain of high-end grocery stores, among other businesses. Not exactly small and certainly not in Chicago. The fountain bubbled cheerfully, at odds with the growing heaviness in my chest. Every word Vincent spoke confirmed what I'd begun to suspect. I hadn't really known Michael at all. Our entire relationship had been built on lies. I feel so stupid, I whispered, tears pricking at my eyes. Damn pregnancy hormones. Don't, Vincent said, his voice surprisingly gentle. Michael is exceptionally good at becoming whatever people want him to be. It's a skill that served him well in the family business. I looked up sharply. The family business? You mean... I mean exactly what you think, Vincent said, holding my gaze steadily. I won't insult your intelligence by pretending we're talking about grocery stores, Eleanor. My heart pounded. He was admitting, openly, to being what everyone in the city whispered about. A man whose business interests extended well beyond the legitimate. Why tell me this? I asked. Aren't you worried I could go to the police? Vincent's lips curved in that not-quite smile. With what evidence? Besides, you're carrying a Castellano. That makes you family of a sort. And family protects its own. The possessive note in his voice sent a shiver down my spine, not entirely from fear, which was perhaps the most disturbing part of all. I should go inside, I said abruptly, standing. I'm feeling tired again. Vincent rose as well, towering over me. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from my face, his fingers lingering just a moment too long against my cheek. Of course. Rest. I'll see you at dinner. As I walked back to the house, I could feel his eyes on me, watching, assessing. The weight of his gaze was like a physical touch, one that left me feeling both protected and possessed. And somewhere deep inside, a traitorous voice whispered that it wasn't entirely unpleasant to be the focus of such intense attention from a man like Vincent Castellano. Days slipped into weeks with surprising ease. My new life settled into a routine that felt almost normal, if one could consider living in a mansion with a notorious businessman normal. Each morning, I woke to breakfast delivered by Maria. Most days I spent hours in my garden sanctuary, reading books from Vincent's extensive library, or simply sitting in the sun, hands resting on my growing belly. Dr. Reeves came weekly, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s, who treated my pregnancy with clinical efficiency. According to her, everything was progressing perfectly. The baby, a boy we'd discovered at the last ultrasound, was healthy and growing right on schedule. A boy, a son. A male Castellano heir. The knowledge had changed something in Vincent. He'd been present for the ultrasound, standing silently in the corner of the room as Dr. Reeves moved the wand over my now visible bump. When she'd announced it was a boy, I'd caught the flash of satisfaction in his dark eyes, the slight straightening of his shoulders. He'll need a strong name, Vincent had said later that evening over dinner. Something with history, weight. I'd bristled at his presumption. I was thinking of naming him after my father. Robert. Vincent had considered this, swirling the wine in his glass. Robert Vincent Castellano, he'd said finally. It has a good sound to it. I hadn't argued with the inclusion of Vincent's name or the Castellano surname. Somehow, it had already become a foregone conclusion that this child would bear his uncle's name, not his absent father's. My new wardrobe had arrived in waves. Practical daywear first, then more formal attire, followed by specially designed maternity clothes as my body changed. Everything fit perfectly. Everything was of the highest quality. I'd stopped protesting after the first week, accepting the clothes as part of the strange arrangement I'd entered into. Vincent himself was an enigma. Some days he was absent entirely, caught up in business I didn't ask about. Other days he worked from home, ensconced in his study for hours before joining me for dinner. Our conversations were surprisingly easy. He was well-read, intelligent, with opinions on everything from classical literature to modern politics. He never talked about his business dealings, and I never asked. But it was the way he watched me that left me unsettled and, if I was being honest with myself, intrigued. His dark eyes followed me when I moved, lingering on the curve of my stomach with something like reverence. Sometimes I caught him staring at me with an intensity that made heat pool in my lower belly, a reaction that both confused and alarmed me. This was Michael's brother, after all. The brother of the man who had abandoned me. Yet as the weeks passed and my pregnancy progressed, Michael began to feel more and more like a distant memory, a character in someone else's story. Vincent, with his commanding presence and unwavering attention, had become the central figure in my new reality. Tonight marked exactly 1 month since the rainy evening when Vincent's limo had pulled up beside my bus stop. 1 month of luxury, of safety, of growing accustomed to a life I'd never imagined. I stood at the window of my suite, watching the sunset paint the gardens in gold and amber. My reflection showed a woman transformed, hair glossy and well-cut, skin glowing with health, body draped in a simple but elegant maternity dress in deep burgundy. The only familiar element was my eyes, still carrying a wariness that no amount of luxury could erase. A knock at the door pulled me from my thoughts. Maria entered, her perpetual calm momentarily disrupted by what looked like concern. "Miss Sullivan, Mr. Castellano requests that you join him in his study immediately." "Is something wrong?" I asked, alarmed by the urgency in her usually measured tone. "It's not my place to say," she replied, which was answer enough. Something was definitely wrong. I followed her through the now familiar corridors, my heart beating a rapid tattoo against my ribs. In the month I'd been here, Vincent had never sent for me immediately. Our interactions had been scheduled. Predictable, this deviation set alarm bells ringing. Maria knocked on the study door, opening it without waiting for a response. Inside, the atmosphere was tense enough to cut with a knife. Vincent stood behind his desk, hands planted on its surface, his face hard as granite. Julian was there as well, standing near the door with another security man I recognized but couldn't name. "Leave us," Vincent said to the room at large. Maria and the security men filed out silently, the door closing with an ominous click. "What's happening?" I asked, one hand instinctively going to my stomach. Vincent's eyes followed the protective gesture. "We've received a message," he said, his voice controlled but with an undercurrent of cold fury. "From Michael." My knees weakened. I sank into the nearest chair, grateful it was there to catch me. "What? How? What did he say?" Vincent picked up his phone, tapped the screen, and turned it to face me. An email displayed on the screen. The sender's address, a string of random numbers and letters. "Vincent, how's fatherhood treating you? Playing house with my leftovers while hunting for your prodigal brother? It's touching, really. Eleanor always was too trusting for her own good. So eager to believe whatever pretty lies she's told. You must be enjoying that quality. Consider the child my parting gift. A consolation prize for what you'll never recover. Don't bother trying to trace this. You won't find me until I'm ready to be found. Give Eleanor my regards. Tell her the baby has my eyes." I read it twice, the words blurring through tears I refused to let fall, the casual cruelty, the dismissive tone. This wasn't the Michael I thought I'd known. But then, that Michael had never existed, had he? "When did this come?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. 20 minutes ago, Vincent replied. He was watching me carefully, gauging my reaction. "My tech team is trying to trace it, but as he said, that's likely futile." I nodded, still processing the email's contents. "He makes it sound like he planned this. The baby. Leaving me for you to find. That's exactly what he's implying." Vincent came around the desk, leaning against its edge just a few feet from where I sat. "The question is why? To hurt you. I said, the realization crystallizing as I spoke. He knew how much family means to you. He's using me, using his own child, as a weapon against you. Something dark and dangerous flashed in Vincent's eyes. Yes. But why? What happened between you? Vincent was silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was controlled, but I could hear the anger beneath it. Michael has always resented his place in the family. He was the second son, the half-brother, raised away from the family business until he was nearly grown. He wanted power without earning it, respect without deserving it. And the money he stole? $2 million is a lot, but for someone like you, I trailed off, uncertain how to finish the thought without sounding presumptuous. It's not about the money, Vincent confirmed. It's about the betrayal, about proving he could outsmart me. His jaw tightened. And about something else entirely. Something I'm still piecing together. I looked down at the message again, one phrase catching my attention. What does he mean by, what you'll never recover? Is he talking about more than the money? Vincent's expression shuddered. Most likely. He was holding something back. I could feel it. There's more to this than you're telling me, I said, a statement rather than a question. Vincent studied me for a long moment, as if deciding how much to share. Michael didn't just steal money, he finally said. He took something else. Something more valuable. Information that could damage the family's interests. What kind of information? The kind that could put people in prison, Vincent said bluntly. Or worse. The implication hung in the air between us. I swallowed hard, suddenly very aware of how little I truly knew about the man before me, about the world I'd been living in for the past month. And now he's using me, using his child, as some sort of distraction. The thought made me physically ill. While you're focused on protecting us, he's doing... What exactly? That's what I need to find out, Vincent said. His eyes hadn't left my face. How are you feeling? The question caught me off guard. Angry, I admitted. Hurt. Used. But not surprised. Not really. The Michael in that email is closer to the truth than the man I thought I knew. Vincent nodded, seemingly satisfied with my answer. We need to increase security. This message confirms what I suspected. Michael is watching. He knows you're here. He may even have someone inside my organization feeding him information. A chill ran through me. Am I in danger? Not from Michael directly, Vincent said. Whatever his faults, he wouldn't physically harm the mother of his child. But his actions have put targets on both our backs. If my enemies learn that he's compromised our operations, they could see it as an opportunity to strike. Our operations, not just his, but ours. The casual inclusion of me in his world should have frightened me more than it did. What happens now? I asked. Now we draw him out, Vincent said. His hand reached out, hesitating just a moment before resting lightly on my stomach. It was the first time he'd touched the bump directly, though his eyes had been drawn to it countless times. He's watching. Let's give him something to see. The weight of his palm against my belly, separated only by the thin fabric of my dress, sent warmth radiating through me. The baby chose that moment to kick. A strong, definitive movement right against Vincent's hand. Vincent's eyes widened slightly, something like wonder crossing his features before he controlled his expression. But his hand remained, pressing just firmly enough to feel the next kick when it came. He's strong, Vincent said softly. Yes, I agreed, my voice equally quiet. He is. For a moment we stayed like that, connected by the child growing within me, the child that bound us together through a twisted web of blood and betrayal and something else, something neither of us had named. Vincent finally withdrew his hand, but he didn't step away. We'll be attending a charity gala next weekend, he said. It's a high-profile event. Everyone who matters in this city will be there. Including Michael's sources, I guessed. Vincent's mouth curved in appreciation of my quickness. Precisely. We'll make a public appearance together. The pregnant ex-girlfriend of Michael Castellano, now under the protection of his brother. It will send a message. What message exactly? I asked. Vincent's eyes darkened. That what was his is now mine. The possessiveness in his tone should have alarmed me. Instead, It sent a forbidden thrill down my spine, a sensation I immediately tried to suppress. "I'm not a possession," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Neither is this child. In my world, Eleanor," Vincent said, his voice low and intense. "Family is the only true possession worth having. And like it or not, you're carrying a Castellano. That makes you family." He stepped closer, his hand coming up to cup my cheek. The touch was gentle but firm, keeping me from turning away. "For the past month you've lived in my home, eaten at my table, accepted my protection. You wear the clothes I provide, you carry a child of my blood. Tell me, in what way are you not mine? Put that way." I had no answer. I'd accepted everything he'd offered, had made no real attempt to leave or establish independence. I'd slipped into the role of protected dependent with alarming ease. "The gala is in 3 days," Vincent continued, his thumb brushing lightly across my cheekbone. "Madame Perrine has already designed your gown. We'll present a united front. The message will be clear to anyone watching, including Michael." "And what if I don't want to be used as bait in your brother's game?" I asked, though there was less defiance in my tone than I'd intended. Vincent's eyes searched mine. "Then say so, and we'll find another way. I won't force you, Eleanor. I never have." It was true. For all his commands and arrangements, Vincent had never actually forced me to do anything. He'd simply created circumstances where his preferred option was the only reasonable choice. "I'll go," I said finally. "But not to help you find Michael. I'll go because I want to look him in the eye when he's finally caught, the man who lied to me, used me, and abandoned his own child." Vincent's lips curved in that familiar not-quite smile. "Vengeance, Eleanor? I wouldn't have thought you had it in you." "There's a lot about me you don't know," I countered. His hand was still on my cheek, his face inches from mine. "I look forward to discovering it all," he said, his voice dropping to nearly a whisper. For a heartbeat, I thought he might kiss me. A part of me, a part I wasn't ready to acknowledge, wanted him to. The tension between us had been building for weeks, a slow burning flame neither of us had named. Instead, he stepped back, breaking the moment. "Rest," he said, his voice returning to its usual controlled tone. "We have preparations to make." As I walked back to my suite, I could still feel the ghost of his touch on my cheek, the weight of his hand on my stomach. Whatever game Michael thought he was playing, he'd underestimated one crucial factor: the growing connection between his brother and the woman he'd discarded. A connection that, despite all my reservations, was becoming harder and harder to deny. The gown Madame Perrine had designed was a masterpiece of subtlety and suggestion. Deep emerald silk draped over my shoulders and flowed down to pool at my feet, the empire waist accentuating rather than hiding my 5-month pregnancy. The back dipped low, exposing the curve of my spine, while the front remained modestly covered. Emeralds and diamonds glittered at my throat and ears. Vincent's gifts for the occasion, delivered that morning in velvet boxes. I barely recognized the woman in the mirror. Gone was the bedraggled waitress crying at a bus stop. In her place stood someone regal, composed, glowing with the unmistakable radiance of impending motherhood. My hair had been styled by a professional Vincent had brought in, swept up to showcase the jewelry and the long line of my neck. "You look beautiful," Maria said from the doorway, her usual reserve softening into something like admiration. "Thank you," I replied, smoothing my hands over the silk covering my bump. "It feels strange, like I'm playing dress-up in someone else's life." Maria's expression turned thoughtful. "Perhaps it's not someone else's life anymore, Miss Sullivan. Perhaps it's becoming yours." Before I could respond, another knock came at the door. Vincent entered, resplendent in a black tuxedo that emphasized his broad shoulders and lean waist. He stopped short when he saw me, his dark eyes widening slightly before narrowing with unmistakable appreciation. "Perfect," he said, his gaze traveling slowly from my face down to the swell of my stomach, then back up again. "Absolutely perfect." Heat bloomed in my cheeks. "The dress is beautiful," I said, deflecting the compliment. "The dress is merely a canvas," Vincent replied, crossing the room to stand before me. From his pocket, he withdrew a small velvet box, different from the ones that had contained the jewelry. One final touch. Inside was a ring, a wide platinum band set with a single enormous emerald, surrounded by diamonds that matched the necklace and earrings. Not a typical engagement ring, but unmistakably a statement of possession. "Vincent," I began, uncertain how to respond. "For appearance's sake," he said, though something in his eyes suggested it was more than that. "Tonight, we present ourselves as a united front. The message must be clear and unambiguous." I knew I should resist, should maintain some boundary between the role I was playing and my true self. But as Vincent took my hand and slid the ring onto my finger, I couldn't summon any real objection. The weight of it felt significant, a tangible symbol of how thoroughly my life had changed. "Ready?" he asked, offering his arm. I nodded, placing my hand in the crook of his elbow. The fabric of his tuxedo was soft beneath my fingers, the solid strength of his arm reassuring. Whatever came tonight, I wasn't facing it alone. The limousine ride to the gala was quiet, charged with an energy neither of us acknowledged. Vincent's hand rested possessively on mine, where it lay on the seat between us, his thumb occasionally brushing over the emerald on my finger. "The Peterson Cancer Research Foundation hosts this gala annually," Vincent explained as we approached the venue, a historic hotel in the heart of downtown. "Every person of consequence in the city attends. Business leaders, politicians, old money families, and members of your organization," I added quietly. Vincent's lips curved. "Yes. And potentially, those who might be feeding information to Michael." "How will we know?" I asked. "We won't, not immediately, but people talk, especially when surprised. Your appearance on my arm will certainly qualify as surprising." His hand tightened slightly on mine. "Stay close to me at all times. Speak only when spoken to. If anyone asks about Michael or the baby, deflect to generalities. Understood?" The commanding tone might once have irritated me. Now, I simply nodded. Tonight wasn't about my independence. It was about survival, about protecting the child I carried. The hotel loomed ahead, its facade lit dramatically against the night sky. A red carpet stretched from the curb to the entrance, flanked by photographers and local press. My heart rate accelerated. "Cameras," I said, suddenly nervous. "If Michael is watching, that's precisely the point," Vincent replied. His eyes met mine, intense and unwavering. "Remember who you're with. No one would dare harm what belongs to me." The possessive declaration should have offended me. Instead, it settled something in my chest, a certainty that despite everything, I was safe with this man. The limousine stopped, and immediately the door was opened by a uniformed attendant. Vincent exited first, then turned back to offer me his hand. The moment I emerged, flashbulbs exploded around us. I blinked against the sudden brightness, instinctively drawing closer to Vincent's side. His arm wrapped around my waist, hand splayed protectively over my hip. He bent slightly to murmur in my ear, his breath warm against my skin. "Smile, Eleanor. Let them see that you're not afraid." I lifted my chin and curved my lips upward. Not a genuine smile, but a reasonable facsimile. Vincent guided me up the carpet, nodding occasionally to acquaintances but stopping for no one. I felt the weight of stares, heard the murmured speculation as we passed. The pregnant woman on Vincent Castellano's arm, wearing his emeralds, bearing his ring. The gossip would spread like wildfire. Inside, the ballroom was a sea of wealth and influence. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light over marble floors. Women dripped with jewelry that could have funded small nations. Men in tuxedos identical to Vincent's, but somehow less impressive, clustered in groups, discussing matters that likely straddled the line between legitimate business and something darker. "Vincent!" A silver-haired man approached, hand extended. "I didn't expect to see you here tonight, Senator," Vincent replied, shaking the man's hand with just the right amount of deference. I never miss an opportunity to support such a worthy cause. The senator's eyes slid to me, curiosity evident in his expression. And who might this lovely young woman be? "Eleanor Sullivan," Vincent said, his hand tightening slightly on my waist. "My fiancé." The word hung in the air between us. Fiancé. Not merely under his protection, but claimed. Marked as his in the most public way possible. "Fiancé," the senator exclaimed, not bothering to hide his surprise. "Well, this is unexpected. Congratulations to you both." His gaze dropped to my evident pregnancy. And it seems more congratulations are in order. Thank you, Senator, I said, finding my voice. It's a pleasure to meet you. The senator's eyes narrowed slightly. Sullivan, that name sounds familiar. Eleanor is a financial analyst, Vincent interjected smoothly. She's been consulting on the new development project on the east side. It was a lie, but delivered with such conviction that even I almost believed it. Ah, of course, the senator nodded, though his expression suggested he wasn't entirely convinced. Well, I won't keep you. I'm sure many people will be eager to meet the woman who captured Vincent Castellano's heart. As the senator moved away, I turned slightly toward Vincent. Fiancé, I murmured, keeping my smile in place. A necessary escalation, Vincent replied, guiding me deeper into the ballroom. The ring alone left room for interpretation. I might have argued further, but we were immediately surrounded by a stream of well-wishers and curiosity seekers. Vincent introduced me repeatedly as his fiancé, fielding questions about our relationship with practiced ease. I followed his lead, keeping my responses vague but warm, playing the role of the adoring bride-to-be. Eleanor needs to rest, Vincent announced after nearly an hour of this performance. The baby, you understand. He guided me to a secluded alcove off the main ballroom, a small seating area partially concealed by potted palms. I sank gratefully onto a velvet settee, the weight of the baby and the strain of maintaining our facade suddenly exhausting. You're doing beautifully, Vincent said, sitting beside me. His hand found mine, fingers interlacing with a familiarity that belied our actual relationship. People are talking, just as we intended. And watching, I added, acutely aware of the glances still directed our way despite our relative seclusion. Vincent nodded, his eyes scanning the crowd with practiced casualness. Julian is monitoring reactions. If anyone seems particularly disturbed by your presence, we'll know. I rubbed my thumb absently over the emerald ring, the stone cool and smooth beneath my touch. Do you really think Michael would have someone here? Someone who might contact him? Michael has always cultivated his own network within mine, Vincent said, his mouth tightening slightly. Loyalty in my world is purchased as often as it's earned, but not yours, I observed. Your men, Julian, the others, they seem genuinely loyal to you. Something like surprise flickered in Vincent's eyes. Yes, they are. Why? I asked, genuinely curious. What inspires that kind of devotion? Vincent was silent for a moment, considering. Respect, he finally said. I demand much, but I give much in return. Protection, prosperity, a place to belong. His thumb brushed over my knuckles. Family isn't always about blood, Eleanor. The irony wasn't lost on me that he spoke of family beyond blood while simultaneously claiming me and my child based entirely on bloodline. Before I could point this out, his attention shifted to something over my shoulder, his expression hardening. Vincent Castellano with a pregnant fiancé, came a smooth, cultured voice. Will wonders never cease? I turned to see a man standing at the edge of our alcove, tall, elegantly dressed, with silver threading through his dark hair. His smile didn't reach his cold blue eyes. Donovan, Vincent acknowledged, his tone neutral, but with an undercurrent of tension. I wasn't aware you were on the guest list. Last-minute addition, the man replied, his gaze shifting to me. Aren't you going to introduce me to your fiancé, was it? Vincent's hand tightened on mine. Eleanor, this is Richard Donovan, a business associate. Richard, my fiancé, Eleanor Sullivan. Donovan's eyes narrowed slightly at my name, a flash of recognition quickly masked. Miss Sullivan, a pleasure. He extended his hand. I took it briefly, his skin cool and dry against mine. Mr. Donovan, Sullivan, he repeated as if tasting the name. No relation to Robert Sullivan, I presume? The accountant who died last year? My breath caught. My father. How could this stranger know about my father? My father, I confirmed, fighting to keep my voice steady. Ah. Donovan nodded, something calculating in his expression. How interesting. I believe he worked briefly for one of my subsidiaries some years ago. His gaze dropped to my stomach. And now his daughter carries a Castellano heir. Life does take unexpected turns, doesn't it? The words were innocent enough, but something in his tone sent a chill down my spine. Beside me, Vincent had gone very still, the tension in his body palpable. "If you'll excuse us," Vincent said, his voice controlled but cold. "Eleanor should rest. Doctor's orders." "Of course." Donovan stepped back, that empty smile still in place. "Congratulations again on your unexpected happiness." As he walked away, I turned to Vincent, questions tumbling through my mind. Who was that? How did he know my father? What did he mean? "Not here." Vincent cut me off, rising smoothly and offering his hand. "We're leaving, now." The abrupt change alarmed me. "Vincent, what's happening?" "I miscalculated," he said, his voice low and tense. "Richard Donovan is not someone I expected to see tonight. His presence, and his knowledge of your father, suggests complications I hadn't anticipated." "My father was an accountant," I said, confused. "He worked for dozens of companies over the years. And apparently one of them was owned by my chief rival," Vincent replied, guiding me swiftly through the ballroom toward the exit. "A man who would happily use any connection to undermine me. A man who, I suspect, might also be in contact with Michael." The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. "You think Michael is working with your enemies? Using information about my father somehow?" Vincent didn't answer immediately, his focus on getting us through the crowd without being stopped. Julian appeared at our side as if summoned telepathically, creating a path toward the exit. Only when we were in the limousine, pulling away from the hotel, did Vincent finally respond. "Your father wasn't just an accountant, Eleanor," he said, his voice grim. "He was a forensic accountant, specialized in uncovering financial fraud and criminal enterprises. Before his illness, he was working on a case that could have exposed significant operations, mine and Donovan's both." I stared at him, disbelief warring with a terrible sense that he was telling the truth. "That's not possible. My father was an ordinary accountant. He did taxes and bookkeeping for small businesses." "A convenient cover," Vincent said. "One that kept you and him safe, until his illness made him vulnerable. Until the medical bills started piling up." My mind raced, recalling my father's sudden decline, the mysterious consulting work he'd taken on despite his weakening health, the cash payments that had briefly kept us afloat before disappearing along with his strength. "You're saying my father was investigating you?" I whispered, the implications staggering. "And others," Vincent confirmed, "including Richard Donovan. Your father was very good at what he did, Eleanor. Too good. He found things that powerful people preferred to keep hidden, and then he died," I said, my voice hollow. Vincent's eyes met mine, steady and unflinching. His heart condition was real. His death was natural. I had nothing to do with it. I wanted to believe him, needed to believe him. But you knew who he was. You knew all along who my father was, didn't you? Is that why you were so interested in me? Beyond just the baby? Because of what my father might have discovered? "No," Vincent said firmly. "I knew of Robert Sullivan's work, yes. But I didn't connect him to you until after you were already under my protection. It was an unexpected complication." "A complication," I repeated, the word bitter on my tongue. "Is that what I am? What my baby is? Just complications in your war with Michael and men like Donovan?" Vincent's hand shot out, catching mine in a grip that was firm but not painful. "You are carrying my blood, Eleanor. My family. There is nothing just about that, nothing casual or inconsequential." "But you didn't tell me the truth," I said, pulling my hand away. The emerald ring caught the light, suddenly feeling like a shackle rather than an ornament. "About any of this. Would you have believed me?" Vincent countered. "If I'd told you your father was more than he seemed? That Michael chose you specifically because of your connection to Robert Sullivan? That your pregnancy might be part of a larger plan to bring down not just me, but everything I've built?" Put that way, he was right. I wouldn't have believed him. Even now, part of me resisted the implications. "So what happens now?" I asked, staring out at the city lights flashing past the tinted windows. Vincent was silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was quieter, almost gentle. "Now we prepare for war, Eleanor. Because tonight made one thing clear. Michael isn't working alone. And the target isn't just me anymore. His hand came to rest lightly on my stomach, the gesture both protective and possessive. It's him, my nephew, the next generation of Castellano. As the limousine carried us back to the fortress-like mansion that had become my home, I placed my hand over Vincent's where it lay on my bump. Whatever game was being played, by Michael, by Vincent, by men like Richard Donovan, my child was caught in the middle of it, and so was I. The emerald ring glinted in the darkness, a symbol of a promise I hadn't truly made, a future I hadn't chosen. Yet somehow, with Vincent's hand warm beneath mine and our child moving between us, it no longer felt entirely like a lie.